So when I was 23 years old, my daughter was murdered by a guy that I was dealing with, and she was only 10 months old. I had 2 other children at the time, and I went through like years of living in shock. You really can live in shock. I think that, you know, people say you're strong and all this and that, but I didn't see myself as strong. I think that I kind of tuned out what happened to me, if you can understand what I'm saying.
I do.
You know, people are like, oh wow, you know, you're going to work. Like, I don't have a choice because I still have 2 other children. And because this happened to me, I was ashamed. You know, I didn't know what had happened. He confessed. I was not in the house at the time that it occurred. And he did confess to the police that he did it. But the guilt from having someone around my children to take one of my children's life, my youngest child at that, was like so overwhelming to me that I totally kind of like blocked things out. And people always like, oh, you're strong, you know, you do this and you do that. Is because I didn't have a choice. I moved from 1993 until, I'm gonna say around 2016, I'm gonna say I moved about 25, 30 different addresses. And what I started to realize was that I was moving away. I thought that I could move myself away from my feelings. So I was moving around thinking that I could move away from my feelings. And what ended up happening was my other daughter, who was 4 at the time that my daughter was murdered, she witnessed what happened. She never told anybody. She did not tell us that she witnessed what happened until she was 16 years old. But she was very aggressive. Like, she always was aggressive. Like, if you got too close to her, to me, her brother, she would fight. Like, she would fight man, woman, child. She didn't care. She was very aggressive. And it wasn't until I decided that I needed to get all of us some counseling. Like, my son was only 2, so he really has no remembrance of my youngest daughter at all. But my oldest one, she did. And so not only did I go through so much, I didn't get my children counseling because, I don't know, maybe I just thought that they were so young that they didn't understand what was going on. Because in the beginning, I didn't get myself counseling either. Because I tried to get counseling, and it was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, you're never going to bring her back. So what is it that you can say to me that's going to make me feel better? You know, I can't go back and change what happened. You can't bring her back. And I just felt like, in the beginning, counseling was pointless to me. That's how I felt. I went there, I listened, but it was like, and then the people that was counseling me, they weren't relatable to my whole life circumstance. So that didn't help either, because they were asking me all kinds of questions about when I was young and my youth and this, that, and the other. And I wanted to understand, why did this happen to me? I was never a bad person. I never did anything bad to people. So why did God take my daughter from me, my baby? You know, she didn't do it. She was only 10 months old. She didn't even get a chance to walk, never said mom. She never got a chance to do any of these things. So it wasn't until, I think I'm going to say it was around 2015, my daughter got locked up, and she had been going in and out of the system for a long time. And she got locked up, and she went to the upstate Pennsylvania prison, and I had her children. And it just got to a point where it was just so much on me, you know, because it was like, I never got a chance to grieve, and now I have to take care of her children, and she's in jail. You know, she was using, she doesn't mind me telling her story, so that's why I'm going to share it with you. She was using opioids, so she was taking lots of pills and things like that, but she was trying to hide what she was going through. And so now I have her children. She has a 3-month-old, 2-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So now I have to stop everything I'm doing. I lost my house, I lost my job, I lost everything because I had to take care of her kid. And so it made me, what happened was, it gave me time to sit down. And even though I was going through so much mentally, it made me really take a look deep down inside of myself. from the beginning to where I was at that point. And I felt like it was time for me to speak out. Because I can just remember being out on my porch and just screaming up to the sky, like, God, why? Like, what is it that you're trying to show me? You have to be trying to show me something because I'm a good person. I'm a good-hearted person. You know what I mean? I've never done anything foul to anyone, never had malicious intent to anyone. So what is it that you're trying to show me? Because you keep putting all of these things on me. You know, it was like one thing after another. You know, after my daughter died, about 3 years later, I got into a relationship, and me and him were about to get married, and I found him dead on the sofa. So, you know, and that was just like my children. I had finally had someone around, and I never let him really be around my kids until we start to get to that point where we were about to get married, and my children loved him. And then he died. And it was like, are you serious? You know, that's what I'm thinking to myself, like, God, you gotta be kidding me, right? Like, I'm just trying to get myself, but God was saying to me, you still didn't work on yourself. See, I still didn't work on myself from what happened to my daughter, you know, and then he died, and now I had to work on myself, how to get myself back from that, because now I lost a man I was gonna marry, and I lost my daughter. And it was just like so much happened. And then on top of that, when my daughter went to jail, my father got sick. And I had to go to Missouri with my grandkids and take them with me to take care of my father. My father never told anybody he had cancer. He never told us. He came to visit us in Philadelphia, but he never told us that he was sick. And so my uncle calls and says, somebody needs to come out here and see your father because he doesn't look good. He's not acting like himself. His house is not clean. You know, things that was unusual for him. So we get there. My father's about this big. Probably was like Gloria's size.
Oh, this big.
No, for a man. So you're good. For him being a man 6 feet tall, to be that small, when I got there, I knew something was wrong with him, and he just fussed. No fuss over me. I'm going to be fine. But he was not going to be fine. And I was there for all about 3 weeks, and my father died in my arms. And my father and I had an estranged relationship because he was abusive to my mother when I was young. And I can remember watching him do these things to my mother. And I believe in his heart, he always wanted to apologize and tell me that he, you know, talk to me, but he never did. So when my father died, I found pictures of myself and my mother in his drawer. And I always believed that it was the two of us that he always wanted to. And I know he wanted, as a matter of fact, I know he wanted to say something to my mother, because when he came to Philadelphia, he said, tell your mother to call me. So my mother came to my grandmother's house, but he never talked to her. He spoke to her, but he wanted to talk to her, but he never did. And he never got a chance to. His intention was to move back to Philadelphia, but he fell in the midst of him having cancer, and he got a brain bleed, and it caused him to die fast. So it was like all of these things, and what it did was it made me take a deep look at myself, and I did not want to go into a deep depression because I had did that before. I had went into a deep depression, and I was admitted into a psychiatric ward, and I had to get myself out of there. You know what I'm saying? But I really wasn't healed. I just faked like I was because I didn't want to be there. So whatever they told me to do, I did, just to get out. But I didn't get treated. You understand what I'm saying? Because I still wasn't dealing with the pain that I was feeling from so many things happening to me over and over and over again. And it was just at a point where I just asked God to help me, like, just show me something. And I don't know what it really was that clicked, but young people just started coming to talk to me, you know, that were in situations. And I would see them, and I would see them in the wrong situations, and I would tell them, don't talk to that guy. You know what I'm saying? Because he is not good for you because of the way he talks to you. Listen to the way he talks to you, you know? And I just felt like that was the calling that God wanted me to have. For me to share my story with someone and possibly prevent some other person from losing their daughter from being in a domestic relationship. Because a lot of times We don't see it the way it is. Like for me, I saw domestic violence in my family, but nobody ever died. And sometimes when we see things, we make it become normal. It becomes normal to us, but we don't often have the outcome that I had. Most people don't often have the outcome. So they'll stay in a situation for a really long time because they don't have that kind of outcome. Or sometimes we're afraid to get out, you know, or sometimes we use material things that people give us, like if they take care of bills or, you know, buy us nice things, give us money, we'll still put up with the nonsense because we don't want to let go of the superficial thing. My journey is to help other women, men and children, anyone that finds themselves in a relationship or in a position where someone is abusive to you or someone is trying to control you, to get out and to get out fast. Like, don't wait. The first sign that you see, just get out of it. Because if not, your story could be my story. And I would never want anyone to have to share my story, to have to feel what I feel. My daughter would be turning 29 years old in October. It took me all of those years to even share my story with people that didn't actually know me personally. Some people in my family didn't know what happened to my daughter. My cousin had braided my hair. And I was talking to her, she was like, I never knew that. Because I never, if you weren't that close to me right around me, you probably didn't know. Because for so long I was ashamed because I had people say to me like, how could you let that happen? Or if that would have happened to me, I would have did this, but you don't know what you would have did. I'm not a pushover. You know, I'm not like a person that I'm going to just allow somebody to do something to me on a normal day. But you never know what your mindset would be when something like that has happened to you. So you can't say what you wouldn't do. Because first of all, who would think that they would be sleeping in the bed with someone that would murder their daughter? Nobody thinks that. You know what I'm saying? So you can't understand the feeling or the mindset of a person who went through that unless you were there yourself. And because so much stuff is going on with these children today, so many children are dying. We have people killing their own children because they cannot mentally deal with it. And I'm a person that I don't often judge people like that. See, most people will say, oh, that person is this, but you don't know, even though I would have never personally did that because I didn't have that in me. Like my children didn't get spanked when they needed to get spanked. You know what I'm saying? But you never know what circumstances people are in. And so I try to not judge anyone because you never know a person's story. Someone could be standing next to you and went through hell, but you would never know. Because people always say that to me, oh my God, like you're so strong. And I used to want to say, I am not being strong. Stop saying that. Because I'm not. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just moving mechanically because I have to get up. And I have to feed my kids and I have to go to work. And I have to do all of these things that I have to do. I'm not strong. I'm just making it. And it's a difference between someone being strong and someone just making it. You know what I'm saying? And so I just feel like there had to be a reason that all of those things happened to me. And unfortunately, it had to be the life of my daughter. But I don't believe that anything in this life happens in vain. I believe that everything in this life happens for a reason. And until you find your purpose, sometimes you might not know what the reasons are. And sometimes you have to do a lot of soul searching to figure out what is the right thing for you to do. And I feel like the right thing for me to do is to share my story and to help people to not get themselves in the situation that I got myself into. Because I didn't just get myself into it, I got my kids into it too. So I have a daughter who she didn't do anything to anybody. She ended up being strung out on drugs, spending half of her, she's only 32, she spent half of her life in the system. She's been going in and out of jail since she was 12. So it wasn't just about me.